Hello, everybody. 2022, we did it, okay? I know I should sound a bit more excited to have this year behind us. Here we are. Let's look back a little bit. I think winter is a perfect time to be thinking about what you grew and what you'd like to grow next year. So I've been thinking about the little patio garden and all of the successes and failures and experiments from 2022. Some shots of my tomatoes there. um, and of course, thinking about some of the tribulations, we've had some visitors. Of course, there's been the odyssey of Squirrely Dan, who's been digging in the garden. Had some aphid problems in the year that I guess I should think about what to do next year. But really, as the seasons change, I think it's always a great opportunity to be thinking ahead, but also reflecting back a bit about some of the challenges we faced. And especially when we think about growing food and changing climates, it's really important to be assessing what went well and what we could do differently. So, a couple of successes that I'm taking away from this year. Number one, growing tomatoes from cuttings. I had no idea that would be so successful. Another thing was just exploring more community gardens and thinking about the role of community and people and connections in growing food and how that's so vitally important to food security. And also just thinking about what to do with small spaces. I really don't have a lot of space. I live in an apartment. I have a common patio space and sort of the side of a building to use, but I'm always trying to maximize how much I can get out of a small area without going really heavy into like chemical fertilizers and things like that. Some failures I had. Growing radishes, I started these way too late and they did really well. I probably should have harvested the radish greens. I didn't. Same with the beets and scallions that you'll see in a second. Basically, I started them too late and they all died as soon as things got cold. We had really extreme temperatures this year, hot and dry up until sort of late October, even into November, and then all of a sudden the rains and then the snows came and the temperature dropped considerably. So I think my beets have kind of hung on. The green onions, the scallions, those are all dead, and the radishes all perished in the cold as well. So one of the lessons I'm taking into 2022 is to just as ever try to research a bit more ahead and really know what I'm doing and trying to get the timing a little bit better. When weather patterns change, that's really difficult, but I think broadly speaking, I should be starting a lot of the things that I tried this year at least 3 to 4 weeks sooner than I did. So the carrots turned out really well. I'll show you those in a minute. And maybe transitioning into the successes, I definitely had some success with peppers and tomatoes this year. I grew a bunch of peppers called paprika and was able to make a whole bunch of paprika, which is something I knew nothing about prior to this year and has me excited to be thinking about what other spices can I grow in a small area and harvest as well. Really, I think if I had to pick like a number one thing that I was happy with this year, it was these peppers. They were just so easy to grow. They were so productive. It really wasn't difficult to dry these peppers out and turn them into paprika. So it wasn't just the fact that I got to do this, it was that it was easy. And I'm sure you've learned by now, I'm a pretty lazy gardener. I like growing food, but if it's going to take all of my effort and all of my time, then I'm probably not as likely to continue doing it. So I'm always looking for highly productive crops that I can kind of just let them go and do their own thing. There's people out there who love fussing and learning about things, but I've definitely stretched myself too thin before and just tried growing too many different things, and that really limits the overall success I have. Tomatoes were another thing that was really successful this year. Because it was hot and dry, things like peppers and tomatoes just did really well in the Pacific Northwest. I've heard lots of other people say like this is the best season they've had of tomatoes. I'm a big fan of sort of a mid-sized tomato, somewhere between a full-size like grocery store tomato and the little cherry tomatoes. Roughly kind of like an inch and a half in diameter, sometimes smaller, sometimes bigger. But again, these are just really, really productive tomatoes. There's so many different varieties. I really recommend looking at local seed companies in your area for open pollinated tomato seeds that are acclimatized to your area. One of the late successes I had this season, and I only just kind of found out about, was growing carrots. I'm not generally a big fan of those fabric buckets. I have a few of them. They tend to kind of gather mold on the sides because they absorb so much moisture. Nasturtiums as well, of course. There's a nice little shot of my nasturtiums I'm very proud of. But getting back to the carrots, again, should have started these earlier, but I'm recording this the week of December 26th in 2022, and I just pulled up a bunch of really delicious carrots that I guess you'll see a little bit later in this video. Yeah, I could go back and move the footage, but again, lazy gardener. Carrots were really successful this year. I got a whole bunch of really sweet little carrots. I just threw a whole bunch into this bucket really late in the season, and they put up with a ton, including a big wallop of snow. That snow turns various things in the carrots into sugars, and that's what makes them really so sweet. I'll get into that more detail, I think, in a video I'll do in the new year. But look at this. Like, for starting these late, these were really delicious, easy to grow carrots. I threw them into this bucket. I watered them occasionally. I really just kind of let them go. I definitely could have thinned them out as well, and I probably would have gotten even bigger carrots. But this was a total end-of-season Hail Mary experiment, and I had no idea what to expect. So once the snows melted, we had a brief little window. I could have left these in, but I just wasn't sure how well they would hold up with like extended cold in a container. So I decided to pull them out and got a pretty decent little harvest. So that was another big success from this year. As we're thinking ahead into the new year, again, with a small space, things I'm really thinking about are it always gets hot and dry in that area. And so I want to make sure that anything new I'm wanting to try is really makes sense in that area. One of the biggest mistakes I think people make is just trying to do too much and not really consider the environment that they're in and what's going to succeed there. Often it's not a case of a lack of skill. It's not the right context. So people try growing something they heard grows really well, but there might be particular things about their area that mean that crop's not going to do as well. So spend some time at your local garden centers, talk to other gardeners and food growers about what works, and try to get some seeds that are cultivated in your area and are going to do well there. That's it. That's it for me. I hope everybody has a restful holiday, and as the chaos of 2022 comes to a close, wishing everybody a very happy 2023.